Welcome to the Full FX Unfiltered, this edition with Loop FX. My name is Colin Lambert. I'm publisher of the Full FX. If you can see me in the gloom here, I'm stuck in a New York hotel room, and probably this video will be interrupted by a siren or one of the more patient New York drivers on their hooter. For that, I will apologize in advance, Blair Hawthorne, CEO of Loop FX. Welcome to the video series.
Thanks very much, Colin. Have you turned on the subtitles? Are we okay?
No, you know what? I think, generally speaking, when Scots go, you're probably one of the easier ones.
I think so. I think so.
Blair, I'd like to talk to you today, if I can, about a few issues. Obviously, Loop FX is starting to gain momentum out there. I thought it'd be good to look at, what are the core issues you're trying to solve, and particularly like your role in how they're going to be solved, because you come from a buy-side background. What are the challenges in your experience from accessing the right liquidity at the right time?
Yeah, sure. So let me just start with a little bit about me. So I've always liked solving problems. It doesn't really matter what it is. It's part of my DNA. My background is I was originally a decent chess player, played all over the world, junior world ranking, but think of it more as, failed child prodigy sorts. Saw kids half my age with many multiples of my talent, stopped playing chess, became a coach, loved coaching, still love chess. But really, it's just how I'm wired. I can't help but look how to try and make things just a little bit better. And it was this crossover from my chess background into trading that came to the thinking behind Loop FX. So I originally joined Aberdeen Asset Management in Aberdeen City as a temp and never left. Absolutely loved working there. I had a great team and a great boss that I really enjoyed working for. And it's that pragmatism and that focus of how can we make things better as a culture that led us to here as well. So what was it that I was seeing when I was trading that wasn't really optimum? And the challenge really for a lot of buy-side traders is currently they have no safe means of identifying who the very best person to trade with is. And we can talk about the right kind of liquidity, to use your question, but I actually think we're starting at the wrong place. I think before we get talking about the different kinds of liquidity that banks can interact with, we should probably start with who we should trade with. So coming back to the problem we had, I'm not too sure who to trade with. Let's go there, and then we can go to the right kind of liquidity after that. So when I've got a big trade as an asset manager, or anyone on the buy side, and also on the bank side, but let's just keep it easy on the asset manager side, we kind of have a choice. It's, I put trading competition and incur market footprint and market impact and pay a slightly wider spread, or I kind of best choose one bank to trade with and hope that they suit my trade and they can get me the best outcome. And both of those have worked. But in an ideal world, if I wanted to make my position a little bit better, in an ideal world, what I want to do is safely check, is there anyone in the market on the other side of my trade, on the buy side or the sell side? And then once we know if there is or isn't, we can then make an assessment as to what that right kind of liquidity is.
Yeah. I mean, I would point out that child prodigy is all very fine, but those of us that were in Stockholm are still in awe of your story about meeting the second best chess player in the world. So we're solving the issue for the buy side here. Now, obviously, one of the issues around, and the time anyone mentions peer-to-peer, we all look at it and go, well, okay, so what about the banks? Now, I guess a lot of people look at it and say, this sort of solution is good for that bank algo team to access liquidity and show if they've actually got an interest in the market. But is there actually sort of a wider impact, a wider opportunity for the banks' trading desks?
Yeah, I mean, you touched there on peer-to-peer. And peer-to-peer is, kind of this Gordian knot that people like to talk about, but it's never really been achieved. And lots of people have tried to get there in clever ways. And they kind of fall at four common problems, really. One is critical mass. If you can't get enough people in, the thing doesn't work. So you have to make it super easy for asset managers and banks, but let's focus on asset managers for now. You've got to make it super easy for the asset managers to do it. And that means don't change their workflows, don't change their legals, and don't upset their panel. So you've got the critical mass aspect first. The second part is what you alluded to. How do you keep the banks interested? banks have a lot of stuff on their plate. They have huge technology costs, huge on costs just to stay still. And someone coming in and literally by its very name, not including the banks, that's not going to be very sensible for the asset management community in the long run. And it's not going to be very good for the banks either. So the term peer-to-peer by its very description isn't appropriate for the big picture. You've got to partner with the banks. You've got to include that part of the liquidity. So this also helps solve the first problem we described of getting critical mass. If you take peer-to-peer and include or augment it with bank access through what we call a peer-to-peer to bank model, you have a much higher chance of matching. And that comes to kind of the third issue, which underpins both. If you want the banks to do it and you want critical mass, you've got to make it really easy for the asset managers. And that means don't change their workflows, don't be a new platform, use the existing great platforms that are out there, and essentially make it super palatable for them to get over the line internally. Because again, like banks, asset managers don't have much tech, they don't have much appetite for risk, and essentially you've got to make it easy for everyone in the market for it to work.
Yeah. And I guess, I mean, those workflow issues, we do focus very much on the asset manager workflow issues, because I guess that's been one of the big stories of the last couple of years, the focus on that. But, I guess it's important not to upset the bank workflow just as much.
Absolutely. Everyone is different. There's no one size fits all.
Yeah.
People have different degrees of the important parts of their business. And, if you keep it really simple and just assume that there's two parts, but it tends to be a lot more complicated than two parts. But if there are two parts of the bank business, the agency side, kind of their algorithm business, and their principal side, the risk-taking business, you have different appetites or inquisitiveness to use tools like the loop. So what we learned really early on, and this is the result of over 225 conversations now across the street, across 75 different firms in some instances, what we've learned is that you have to make a modular approach. You have to make it flexible. Not everyone's going to want to connect all the different things you can do. So we've always kind of listened to that feedback, and trust me, sometimes it's not that easy to listen to. But you take it and you think, cool, right, thanks for being honest with me. We'll take it away and refine it. And this kind of comes back to what we talked at the beginning of the chess story is, chess is kind of steeped in a culture of analysis and refinement. We thought we had something that was really good. You've just been really kind enough to tell me I'm an idiot and I can do it a bit better. Let's take it away and refine it and put it back on the board. And that's what we've done over and over and over again. And the team have been fantastic at that. The constant refinement. It's really, really important to us.
And obviously, I often refer to this sort of mechanism as a dark mechanism. And I've had a long fascination with dark pools. I still look at it and go, well, you want to reduce market impact, reduce the level of transparency in the order of them in the market. So what are the benefits to your mind of the dark mechanism? But also what I'd like to explore with you is maybe where the potential challenges are going to come from by having such a mechanism.
Yeah, I mean, dark mechanisms are, let's call it something else that's maybe dark pool, are really common in other asset classes. And again, if we get away from the weeds for a moment and we go to 10,000 feet, you're like, okay, so in equity world, there are thousands of equities and dozens of dark pools. In fixed income world, there are tens of thousands of bonds, and there are, again, dozens of different kinds of dark pools or dark mechanisms. In FX, we're talking about maybe 5 currency pairs that make up over 50% of volumes, and we don't have many dark pools. So, that there, it's quite stark. They're perfectly accepted in other asset classes. Why don't we have them in FX? The reason we don't is because we haven't found, or there's yet been a way developed that gets the critical mass in place for them to work, especially in a market that trades pretty liquidly. So if we pause that for a moment, we can then actually come on to part of the nuance of the loop, and again, just changing the order flow or changing the thought process, of how we think about trading. The thing that we all fell out about, and Colin, I'm sure you've got lots of war stories on this, is price. Price is the thing everyone gets upset about. And if I can just accept for a moment, Colin, that you like to buy things and I like to sell things, rather than try and get me to go at your price and you to go at mine, how about we just agree to do it in the middle and pay someone a fee for setting that price and connecting the two of us? that sounds pretty sensible. You can cover liquidity at a fair price, so can I.
I'm still going to complain about the price given, by that independent third party, of course. I'm paying you for what?
Exactly, but this is the key thing, is that you have to be really respectful. So you're quite right. You're not taking risk. You're connecting two people in a clever way, but and that's where you have to be. You can't be greedy. You have to turn around and say, "Yep, I get it." So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pay some of my revenue to some of the supporting members who are helping this occur, and also we're not going to charge through the nose for it, because we've got to be reasonable about it. Yeah. So that's something that I'm really proud of, that's been received across nearly all of our clients, is our fee structure is respectful to the ecosystem. There's something in it for everyone. And really what we've managed to find in our little Venn diagram is this tiny island where asset managers, where banks, and where platforms are all made a little bit better off than they were before.
Yeah. There are challenges, however, to the dark mechanisms. I mean, obviously, you mentioned other markets, and on rare occasions, we do acknowledge that other markets exist outside of FX on the full FX. Rarely, I should stress. But, obviously, there have been some rumblings. Do regulators really like dark pools? Is there a problem with the lack of market data? I mean, do you think these are stuff that you might have to overcome at some stage, or is that part of the DNA of the loop that you're trying to build in?
Yeah, well, the only thing that's going to be guaranteed day one, Colin, is it's not going to be perfect. And we're trying to do something different here. So we got to learn, we got to listen. But what we have done is we've taken some of the very best minds in the industry. And, I'm sure you've seen my executive team, they're brilliant. And we've also got some really close partners across both the asset management community, the sell side community, and the platform community, and taking all that feedback on board. So we can have some really sensible starting blocks of, encouraging a sensible average lifetime or average quote time, the kind of how long the order should be left in the loop, but looking for a match. What can we do to try and limit people's ability to try and fish for information? Well, let's just say you can't jump from being a buyer to being a seller every second. There's some very practical, sensible things we can do to try and limit those bad behaviors. Yeah. And again, we have one of the best technology partners who we're going to be announcing soon, supporting us. And that means that we have, a very sophisticated tech stack that allows us to keep an eye on these bad behaviors. And, if we do see them, we can have a practical conversation and say, what do you think of this? Yeah. And I'm sure, Colin, you'll have put your hands up and say, you caught me, I won't do it again. We'll go from there.
Yeah, then I'll just be looking for the next one. Not sure what the problem is here. It's like you mentioned platform partners there. So you recently announced the link up with FX Connect, and obviously is heavily associated with asset managers. So how will this link up work?
Well, before we talk about how it's going to work, let's just take a brief moment here, because we have to acknowledge FX Connect, State Street, Global Link, moving on this. There's so many institutions that talk about blueprints and roadmaps, but FX Connect have listened to their clients and they've gone and done something about it. And I think everyone likes to give the platforms a bit of stick, myself included, when I was on the asset management side. Yep. And I think we really have to acknowledge that they've gone and got this done amongst all the other things that they have to do. And the Connect team have been absolutely superb to work with. So, very excited for some of the things they're building on their platform. That being said, I know how sensitive workflows are, and I know what it needs to look and feel like as having had that seat. We often use the line "built by practitioners for practitioners." So it's not just the brain of the loop; it's the brain of all the people that are supporting us. And one of my favorite meetings is early on I went round all the asset managers with a pad of paper and a box of colorful crayons, and I said, "What would you like it to look like?" And I think they quite liked it, Colin. You don't need to go for pints anymore. Go with 3 colors of crayon and a big white pad of paper and see what they draw. It gets a bit interesting after you've gone for a beer and they're still drawing stuff. But anyway, that's fine. Yeah. But we know what it needs to look and feel like. So that means that when we're then having these conversations, they're not surprised by what it needs to do. I need it to be quick. I need to be able to get in, check, see if I can find a match. If not, if my order instruction changes or whatever, I need to change it and get it back with the bank quickly. I want to do that in 3 clicks, Blair. Yeah, we can do that. Quantify it for us and we can hit the target. And that comes back to, the value prop for the buy side is essentially, well, Blair, I really like it. And importantly, you're not changing my legals. You're not changing my workflows. You're not making it look weird, and that's kind of exactly what we've managed to deliver so far.
Yeah. If they're managing their legals, does my head in, but that's definitely for another video link. So obviously you're launching into not a crowded space. You point out quite rightly, the dark pools are relatively rare in foreign exchange, but there is a lot of attention on this sort of peer-to-peer stroke dark pool, dark mechanism space. So how are you going to differentiate yourself compared to other pools of liquidity? What would you go in and say, okay, look, our USP is X?
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to chew your ear off about market impact and lower execution costs, because we hear that over and over and over again, and you just turn off, I'm just numb to it. So let's go back a step. We're starting with a real problem. The real problem for both the buy side and the sell side is I can't safely find someone in large size on the other side. Can you provide me a mechanism to do that? I can't ask and you can't tell. That's exactly what we've done. Our dark pool allows that safe exchange of information with orders matching at mid that's firm. Great. As a practitioner, when I was listening to some of these other ideas, I liked parts of them, but there's nothing in the market when I was trading that I'd actually recommended or used. So I felt compelled to go and do something about that.
Yeah.
We get lots of feedback. Blair, this is really cool. Like, could you do this? Could you do this in a different product? Or can you differ in a different session type? And we're really listening. We're writing it all down, but we're starting with one problem at a time.
Yeah.
Let's not boil the ocean. Let's not start thinking about the middle game when we're not yet out of the opening.
Yeah.
You're a cricket guy, right, Colin? You don't start thinking about throwing the ball till you've caught it. That's the simple stuff that we're trying to get right. Do the basics and the rest will follow.
A very wise lady once said to me on a panel that if I listen to all my clients, I'll be a schizophrenic maniac, but you have to pick out the good from the bad. And I guess that's to your point, isn't it? It's like, I wanted to sort of close out with what's next, but in reality, that's not a question I can really ask you, because as you say, you're starting with solving one problem, and then you're already looking for the next problem to solve, isn't it? So it's hard to actually sort of, define what's next for Loop FX, but have a go.
I'll have a go. I mean, the key thing is that, we made a tremendous hire, and we've got a super talented data scientist, a lovely lady called Christian, who has done some tremendous work for us. And I really like the story because she never worked in finance. So she's not fazed by some of the challenges and the stigmas that we have about things. And she's completely fresh in her approach. And when she was working kind of optimizing kind of pharmaceutical ingredient optimization, how can we get the very best from this mixture of things to get the best output? It's the exact same with our matching engine. So we were essentially looking at what's the best mix of asset managers to banks, what are the best behaviors that go into that, and then dovetail that with what can we learn from other matching engines like Uber, or dating apps like Tinder or Thursday, all these kind of things. And we can throw it all together to try and actually quantify what we think the next product should be. And what's really cool about that is we can turn around to the asset managers and say, hey, look, we've had lots of demand for these different things. We've actually built it in our simulator, and we can show you what we think that looks like. This is the benefit. Which one would you like us to consider doing? And that's really quite a powerful way of doing it, because you go from kind of guessing what the next best thing to do is, to actually, again, testament to the whole chess stuff, is turning around and saying, well, we've done the analysis after kind of the post-mortem of the game, and this is what it should look like. But, before we go and try and build it, tell us you'll use it, and then we can get our partners to move accordingly. Yeah. So again, we're just never guessing. Like it's so central to what we're doing is we don't guess because we don't need to. And that's the common theme for all of this is you don't need to guess. We can provide a better framework and a better way of making those decisions, whether it's in the market or even in our examples of how we can build future products.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely, from my perspective, a fascinating approach, and it's going to be interesting because it is very much like a project from the ground up. So I'm sure that we will be speaking again in the future.
Oh, I'm sure we will be too. But you mentioned a really interesting matching engine to me last time we spoke. There was a very early EBS-based matching engine that was some
yeah,
dating.
I'm sure it was a friend of mine who works at EBS said it was based on something like the Gale Shapley dating algorithm that was developed in Cambridge University in 1962 or something like that. Which I guess then, like, just highlights the fact that we're all talking innovation, but one of the core mechanisms in the market that one of the big changes in the market over the last 30 years actually come from a dating algo from 1960.
There we go, right? But that's the point, right? Like, if you look at the evolution of all these things, it's not rocket science. It's just constantly trying to make things a bit better. Yeah. That's it. We've gone from a dating app built in the 1980s to some of the most sophisticated, low latency, non-discretionary matching engines in the world, to now finding a way to plug something that is as powerful as that into a place that everyone can access it. And the possibilities of having that liquidity in one place, in a safe mechanism that everyone is happy to use, or most of the market is happy to use, that's really quite compelling. Yeah, indeed.
Blair, thanks so much for your time today. It's always interesting and fascinating to talk to you. I'm sure we'll be doing it again soon.
Looking forward to it as well, Con. Thank you very much.
And thanks to all of our viewers for watching again, and we'll be back again soon. Thanks a lot.